before in these plans and familiar with, hopefully you're familiar with some of the work that we're doing here for this planning project. And I'm not a new face to you, but if I am, I'm the project manager for the city for this project. And it's although it's been a partnership here, certainly with other city departments, the 24th and 28th wards, Alderman Michael Scott, Alderman Jason Irvin, and as well as our outside assistance on this, with led by Skidmore, Owings, and Merrill, and a group of sub-consultants as well. So like I said, I'm going to take a few minutes here and see if Alderman Scott will be joining us, give him an opportunity to kick us off. So just please be patient. We'll get started very shortly here. And Kevin, since you're still here, if you could put Alderman Scott on as a panelist, I believe I forgot to add him to our list as well.
Yes.
I can send his email to you in the chat.
Yes, please do. Thanks.
Okay, it looks like Alderman Scott is on here. Kevin, would he have to rejoin? If he's, I mean, I gave him speaking permission.
Yeah, he's back in as a panelist now. He should be able to turn on his camera and speak whenever he'd like.
Yeah, great. Yeah, Alderman Scott, we just got going here, and just wanted to allow you the opportunity to help kick us off and welcome everyone here to the meeting. So I won't stand in the way here any longer. Go ahead. You can have the floor.
Well, thank you, Brian, and SMO team for this third. And is this the final one, Brian?
Yeah, this is our last public meeting today.
All right, the third and final public meeting as regards to planning of the Lawndale line, Altenheim line, whatever you want to call the line. I just want to first start by thanking everybody who's been a part of this process. You know, when I was elected, it seems like 20 years ago, but it's only been 7. 7 years ago, I was walking in what is now the tower, used to be the Sears Tower. I was walking there, and Kristen Dean, we were talking about how it would be so great to have a line similar to that of the 606 that can kind of cross through North Lawndale. And my wheels got to turning, and in the last administration, you know, tried to twist some arms to make that happen. And unfortunately, because we're at this point, it did not happen. But we are here now, and the public has been through. This will be the third of 3 planning meetings to kind of talk about what a line would look like in North Lawndale, and how it would benefit North Lawndale, and how it would bring economic development, and how it could bring affordable housing, and how it can build a community and be something that is transformative to this community. And so I'm just glad that so many people have stuck with this process, and so many people are here this evening. We have a great team, and if they're going to show you any of the stuff that they've shown me over the last couple months or so, I think folks are really going to be pleased about where we are and what we're going to do. And I think the only thing we'd have to do after that is kind of figure out how we find the money to make this happen. And so with that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian, and hope that everybody here tonight will participate and be a part of, and let folks know that something great is happening in and around our community, And what you need to do is be a part of and be vocal and figure out how it works best for our community. Again, thanks, Brian, and the SMO team and everybody who's been a part of this planning process.
Yeah, thanks so much, Alderman. And yeah, it's been great partnering with you and your staff, as well as the 28th Ward on this project as well.
You know what, Brian? I always forget to do that, and I'm I'm so sorry. But you know, the line is probably 3/4 in the 24th Ward and a quarter in Alderman Irvin's ward, but he or somebody from his staff has been Johnny on the spot, if you will, for these meetings and been here. I want to give a big kudos to Trina Mangrum, who is the Alderman's chief of staff, who has been really intricate in making sure that these planning processes have happened and participated on behalf of Alderman Irvin. And I've talked to him several times, and I know he's very supportive of this. And so I just want to say thank you to him and his staff for one, being a part, but two, you know, helping share in what can be great for North Lawndale.
Great. Yeah, thanks so much. So we also have a part of the team, Jesse Green, the director of NLCCC, and a you know, community stakeholder and representative. Also wanted to give him the floor for a bit to just kind of talk about how this fits into the greater context of planning in North Lawndale. So Jesse, are you?
Yes, thank you, Brian. And thank you, Alderman Scott, for your leadership and direction with this exciting project for our community. And thank you, community members and stakeholders, for joining us tonight. I just wanted to remind folks and thanks folks for participating in this project. This has been about an 8-month-long project, and some of you have been able to participate in all of the meetings. And just wanted to remind you that this project is reflective of the work and the commitment and what you asked in our quality of life plan. When we met with you several years ago regarding what are some of the things you'd like to see come to North Lawndale, well, this is one of those things that you identified. It's an arts and culture project, a project that addresses athletics, physical health, through bike and running, and through different type of social safe spaces for individuals to gather, very interactive elements that address the rich history of North Lawndale. So we're really grateful and excited to walk you through what we've come up with based on all the meetings that we've had with you over the past 8 months. So thank you, Brian.
Yeah, thank you, Jesse. And yeah, to kind of run with what you're saying here and provide folks who are in attendance a little bit more context before I hand it off to David to get into the, you know, show the product of the work that we've been doing here. You know, we've been working on this, you know, since the spring, early summer. We've come out to the community a couple of times already, both in public and in a virtual format. For this meeting, we decided to go with only a virtual format. But, you know, what you're going to see today are concepts for the trail itself as a recreational amenity and open space, these redevelopment areas that we've been looking at as part of the scope of the plan. And then also kind of, you know, the third primary element of this was considering, you know, anti-displacement strategies for the community, and how this project, you know, like any other major investment that the city or, you know, other public entity might make can, you know, not have any adverse impact on the current residents of North Lawndale and its affordability and its accessibility as a community on Chicago's west side. So this will hopefully be reflective of the input that we've received. You know, we've come to the community. We've also done an in-depth analysis of the existing conditions out on the line and the surrounding community, taking a look at market analysis data for, you know, the residential, commercial, and industrial markets to inform these development concepts that you're going to be viewing. So again, just as we'll get into that in just a moment, but as a final note, just in terms of the opportunities for engagement and feedback tonight, we're going to kind of break up the presentation into 3 sections, and we will be stopping to allow folks to give their input. You can raise your hand and I will give you permission to speak. You can put your comments into the chat as well. And then also when we stop and do a Q&A, I thought this was very effective last time, we're going to have some interactive questions, interactive polling questions on menti.com. So you can navigate to the website. I know that not everyone may have the availability to do it, but if you go to menti.com, menti.com, and a code will pop up, you can enter in that code and it allows you to respond to those questions. So essentially, it's just going to be the same opportunity as you would be raising your voice and asking it verbally, but I realize not everyone is comfortable with that. So this is essentially just the opportunity for you to type it in as a written comment as opposed to speaking it out loud. And that kind of brings us to the last element here is that I have a ton of respect for everyone who's been in attendance in these meetings before for being respectful and keeping the conversation and the discussion considerate, polite, and essentially let's try to avoid inappropriate comments and use of any kind of like vulgar terminology or offensive words. So it's been great so far, and I think we've had really great feedback. So let's keep up the good energy that we've had so far. And I'm just going to politely ask that, and let's try to avoid any of that in the chat so we can engage with the group here as best as possible. So with that said, we want to be as inclusive to everyone that's here. And we're going to get rolling here. So I'm going to hand it off to David Scully from Skidmore, Owings and Merrill, who you should probably recognize at this point too, since he's been so integral in this process. And yeah, David, take it away. Thanks a lot.
Yeah, thanks, Brian, and thanks, Alderman, and thank you, residents, for showing up. We're really excited to kind of show you where we've gotten to and how we've sort of taken everything into account and sort of what we've been moving forward with over the last kind of month and a half, 2 months since we last saw you. So just a quick agenda of the night. We're going to talk really quickly and recap a little bit of the community process. So you'll get to see a little bit of what we heard as a summary and some of the things that we've been up to if you haven't been able to take part. And we're going to talk a little bit about the trail itself. What are some of the key elements that are percolating through the design and some of the key ideas that sort of the team has come up with, as well as sort of then diving into some focus areas that sort of are trying to really dovetail with the design of the line to create a framework for equitable development in the neighborhood. So just into the community process and to, kind of step back and give people context if you're not familiar with the study so far. The study is for the Altenheim line, which was, kind of a nickname, the Lawndale line. The idea of, sort of this existing rail line that's very underutilized and, the opportunity to kind of leverage that as a recreational amenity that connects through the community is key. And so we've been, tasked with studying the line, but also a larger study area that encompasses, sort of both areas, north and south of the line, as well as east and west, to understand what the opportunity is. So just some photos of what that looks like from an aerial view, just to see the line itself. I'm sure folks have driven under it, to get from one side to the other. But just seeing it from this view, you get to kind of see the breadth and scale of it and how it really, does exist today and connect through the community, and how there's a real opportunity to really leverage that and create the opportunity for public space, for community space, for economic development catalysts as well. So the goals for the project have been, sort of fourfold: exploring recreational opportunities around the line itself, identifying kind of the highest and best use for industrial and commercial parcels, really focusing on how that could be job generating, building a sense of community ownership and control. So we don't want this to be something that comes in from 50,000 feet. That it is, sort of, met from the ground up with the energy and sort of your input that's helping to shape the ideas that are coming about. Supporting local economic growth, and then developing strategies for equitable investment and anti-displacement, understanding that that's a key priority that we've heard from multiple folks as well. So a little recap. These are some photos on the right of the last session that we had at a DRW school. So that was a really great session to be actually sort of in one of the old Sears buildings, be able to go out onto the balcony, onto the line itself, and really experience and share and talk with the community about what the opportunity is. So, from the sessions that we had 2 in person and 1 virtual, as well as a series of other stakeholder meetings and smaller meetings with folks in the community. We heard, some very clearly some key themes emerging. This idea of reflecting history and culture being core to, sort of everything that needs to be done. Multi-generational mobility, programming, access, that it should be someplace for everybody. Focusing on equitable development and anti-displacement, as mentioned earlier, affordable and inclusive, centering local jobs, as well as, sort of design that responds to context. We also have used, as Brian mentioned, the live polling as well as a survey to also additionally inform us and get input from folks in the community about what opportunities are in the neighborhood. And this is just a snippet of some of the questions and some of the input that we got from the last session. And you'll see how all of that really really became the footing and the foundation for the design work that we've done so far. We've also, sort of really brought together, of course, market data and, sort of understanding each of the key elements: multifamily residential, for sale residential, commercial, industrial, and other opportunities to understand, where does the study area fit in each of these sectors, as well as how to, sort of move the needle forward and continue to find opportunities for equitable investment in each one of these categories. So we're not just focusing on multifamily housing, we're not just focusing on industrial. And I think that's the beauty of the area, is that it has opportunities for all this stuff to really create a very holistic, grounded solution that's supporting existing community needs. So with all of those elements together, the community input, the research and sort of analysis, as well as kind of some of the initial ideas and conversations, we came up with sort of these 2 series of principles or themes to really explore and sort of start to look at what those recommendations could be. But this idea of an equitable investment framework that doesn't just look at, sort of infill housing or, sort of renovation, but really starts with supporting existing residents, understanding the opportunities for renovation and reactivation of those existing buildings that are already there as a start, understanding the opportunity for infill housing and mixed use, as well as a focus on jobs. So, that this is something that cuts across all those sectors and all those opportunities and weaves those together with the line itself. And, sort of the line itself really, we've heard a lot of really great things about what it could be. We've started to talk about it as this sort of community arts and heritage trail. And we've been working with Hood Design Studio, which is a really amazing, Black-owned landscape architecture firm that, has really brought some really interesting ideas, which I'll share with you in a second. But this 4 themes about, sort of representing local culture, arts, and heritage, really strengthening those existing ecologies and programming. So making sure that we're, engaging the stuff that's already happening on the line itself, like home and rail farms and DRW school, creating opportunities for both active and passive recreation. And because this is such a long trail, there's opportunities for all of that. And then as mentioned earlier, access for all. Like we want this to be a very enjoyable, easy to get to experience that allows folks of all mobilities to engage in the line and engage in the space as well. So just to talk a little bit about the line itself, and one of the things that, so you'll notice is that when we, start to look at this, that this is a, sort of rail and trail effort, that there is, sort of the need to keep, some rail easement on the south. But there's a lot of opportunity to the north, and looking at, kind of what these reaches and what these programs could be. So, you see on the slide a myriad of programs. Some of them are, talking about forests or skate parks or gardens, really trying to be reflective of the context. And that was a key part of how the programming of the line came to be. Understanding that, we need to create a rhythm of, access points. So, right now they're every quarter mile looking at opportunities to access the line and making sure that it's accessible for all is a key idea of the landscape design. And then, understanding that there's an opportunity to really strengthen and diversify the ecologies and the ecosystem that's there already. So we don't want to come in and put things that are foreign, and we want to leverage the areas that the parcels do expand, and that there is opportunity to sort of take advantage of that. And you see this sort of rhythm of meadow and garden and forest, and all of these ecologies allow for a variety of types of uses that can happen within each of those zones. We also looked at this idea of these gateways, both as an opportunity to celebrate heritage and sort of frame views, and as a way to kind of denote each of these really key points, whether it's sort of Costner, which we see right now as sort of the western end of the line, as well as sort of Independence, where it intersects with the Emerald Necklace Boulevard system of the city of Chicago, and other areas, Homan, Sacramento, and California, being key areas that are aligning and trying to highlight views back into the neighborhood and connect to existing assets. And then also understanding the opportunity for integrating arts and culture in a way that both is, sort of not just, murals, though that's a part of it as well, sculpture, performance arts, understanding, music, understanding, kind of places that all of these things can live and can happen along the line. And one of the key ones, which we'll talk a little bit about in a second, is this idea of a forest stage that connects to the boulevard system. So we started to look at these three scenarios, and just to zoom in on some areas and talk a little bit about what the line could be, understanding that there's still a ton of design work that's going to still have to happen, but these are initial ideas that we heard in the community interactions and really want to take a stab at how that could be. So looking at this idea of this Parkway Theater that connects along Independence, communal arts and culture, which is connecting to Homan, and then the Civic Green, which would allow for both views back downtown, but also take advantage of nearby adjacencies around public, sort of community active spaces. So, starting with this, idea of a Parkway Theater, there's really an opportunity to, sort of take advantage of the, sort of beauty of the historic, sort of underpass condition that connects to Independence Boulevard and to the actual boulevard itself, and to leverage that space as an opportunity for this public stoop and allowing for a stage for performance to happen within this sort of woodland, sort of orchard, field of trees that would really bring life into a space. So looking at that in section, so you can see up here in the corner, we're taking a cut through what that could be like, but the opportunity to have this sort of seating that could sort of then outlook onto a stage that engages the boulevard itself, woodland that really creates shade and you feel the sense of being in the trees. And then opportunities for these heritage gateways that really can tell the story of the neighborhood through those elements. Shifting, a little bit to the east to Homan, was a real opportunity to build off of the momentum of Homan Rails Farm, as well as DRW College Prep, and build in, some key elements, finding opportunities for easy access, this idea of sculpted lawns, as well as integrating, sort of solar and sort of active, sort of energy generation onto those spaces, as well as performance. So we're showing here in the section as well, this idea of a music and dance space that could be both used by the school as well as by other groups in the neighborhood to bring activity and vibrance to the line itself. And then, finally looking at this idea of a civic green and this opportunity to really build topography to allow for things like sledding hill, performance lawn, sort of these splash pads and other elements that would, kind of really be a great ending to the line, and leveraging that topography to really build the land up to get, sort of these amazing downtown views, which you can see actually there today, but getting up a little bit more would provide really an opportunity to do that in a grand way. And then integrating arts and recreation into that space as well. So all of those, sort of are just examples of how, sort of these key elements and key places are being, sort of thought of as, these key nodes along the trail. But there's also a series of development focus areas that we're also, I've been, working with in tandem, in that they all come together to create a framework for both open space as well as, sort of the investment and development around housing, jobs, and sort of a holistic vision for what the study area could be. So with that, we'll pause, and we wanted to ask, just give you a chance to digest and ask some questions. And I think I'll hand it over to Brian to kind of start the Menti up. But we want to just kind of start off by asking you, sort of just what are some elements that we can add to the vision for the trail that you may think we hit everything. You may think, oh, it'd be great to add this, but we'd love to hear that from you today. Oh, Brian, you taking over or?
Yeah, thanks a lot, David. Sorry. Yeah, I'll share my screen now and I'll pull up the Menti polls. Just one moment here. Okay. So here, essentially this is, like I said, just another way of gathering comments from folks. So if you go to the website up at the top and you enter the code in, then you can just type your feedback here and it'll show up in bubbles here. So I also want to go to, let's see. For the attendees, if you would like to speak, please raise your hand. And I'll allow you to turn on your microphone. So we've got a couple of questions here in the chat too, so we can address those. Angelica Gomez has a couple of questions. So in the, depending on the location in the sort of 2-mile section of the trail, elevated rail line, I should say, that we're looking at, there's varying widths. The infrastructure is different depending on the location that you're looking at. And there are some sort of subsections that have similarity, like, if you're looking at, the area that's maybe between, kind of like east of Homan Square out to California, it's got an embankment on one side and a retaining wall on the other. If you look at the Homan Square area, it's got retaining walls on both sides, and there's actually quite a bit of width there. David earlier on, it showed some interesting comparisons with the 606 that compared the width of that to this. And so in some areas, you've got quite a bit of width there. And then as you go further west, there are some areas that have less width in the right of way. I don't know, David, did you have, you want to fill in some details there?
Yeah. So I was actually, checking that question myself. It varies. There's, sort of an average length. So if a home in, for instance, it's about 110 feet wide. It goes down to 80 to 70 feet in some places. So Independence, it's a little bit smaller. It's kind of in that sort of 70 foot to 80-foot range. In California, it gets kind of about to 55 or 60 feet. But in general, it's actually wider in most places than the 606 by a lot. So there's a lot that you can do with these spaces. And that's just the line itself. The ownership also has a series of parcels. If you look at the parcel, there's a line itself and, potentially an embankment, but it sort of gradates off into, kind of the neighborhood. So there's additional width as well in those parcels that can be reactivated. So there's really a lot of opportunities for spill off and for connectivity and for more programming than sort of the 606 for comparison.
Yeah, thanks, David. And let's see, Alderman Scott, I see you got your hand raised. So go ahead.
Yeah, so there was a comment about a greenhouse, and I would, and I think they said over by so they said similar to the farm on Ogden, and I would say that the Home and Trails. What's the name of the hoop house that's up there? Is it
Home and Rail Farm?
Home and Rail. So there is actually a group that does farming there with the hoop house that kind of acts as a greenhouse. And so, what I think may be a better solution is to kind of bolster the activities that they're doing along the line already to create a greenhouse type, because they already have something similar to a greenhouse. They have a farm and some hoop houses up there. So I think that's a great idea. Somebody already thought of that, and they're already doing it. And I'm sure, because she has a volunteer organization, would love to have folks help her out with her the farm on the rails up there.
Yeah, thanks, Alderman. And kind of getting back to the what we were talking about in response to Angelica's question, you've got various context here and conditions that can support a number of different programs there, and David got into this when he was presenting the concept plan for the trail itself, where you've got these different natural sort of themes and features there, and it included garden as well. So to the extent that the community we would want to involve the community in this, I think that there are opportunities for partnership. I think this kind of gets to Charles's comment or question here. Right now, this is the very first step. Like Alderman Scott said, we don't have funding for this project, but we're trying to engage as heavily as we can with the community to get the feedback on how this can be a real useful and amenity in the community, but also a point of pride and stand for the history and culture of North Lawndale. So that's why we're here, and that engagement would continue throughout the process as we begin more detailed designs, as funding may become available. And so just to get to some of the other comments and questions, space for people walking, biking, running, and for wheelchair users. So Anne Maria in the chat, I'm having a hard time keeping track of all these text boxes. But so similar to the 606, the city would certainly prioritize accessibility to a amenity like this, so that you would have ramps and try to make access as inclusive and easy as possible. I mean, and obviously there are also requirements that we have to meet in terms of the Americans with Disabilities Act, the ADA, to make sure that it's open to all users for various types of activities. And to David's previous comment, the fact that we do have some additional width here, even though right now we're kind of looking at this as a potential rails with trails project, there's still a lot of space, and it can provide options for different users, and take a look at some of the lessons that have been learned from the lakefront or the 606 to try to, acknowledge the fact that you're going to have multiple forms of transport on there. So let's see, I'm going to mark these as answered live. Restrooms along the route, also any shaded areas on the trail. Yeah, to Angelica's comment again, thank you for your active engagement here. So some shaded areas, some areas that are not, where you've got a different kind of environment with the plantings and the amount of trees that are there. So I think that, like, variety is certainly something we're already considering in the the framework plan that we're doing here. Kevin Drewer here. Love the ideas for community spaces at home and for the performance, dance, and community gatherings in the East End with park space, sledding hill, etc. Has there been any thought to incorporate some additional parking at these nodes to accommodate some that may not be riding their bikes or walking to events or parks? I don't think too many will be biking to the sledding hills. So, we do see this as a active transportation, amenity. It's not just open space. It's a way to get from one point to the next. Obviously, like to the previous comment that was about the 606 and how many people are on bikes as well as walking, in this process, we're really focusing on the non-automotive users for places like this. So, if there is a kind of a park amenity at the East End, it's possible that, maybe some kind of accessory parking to that would be provided, just in the similar way that a public park, within the city has some parking. But this is space that we want to prioritize for open space and active transportation, and generally not for vehicular use. So I'm going to go to the Menti comments here. Thank you, everybody, for their participation in this. Let's see. Altenheim line looks nice, but I think there are much bigger issues in the Lawndale community that should be addressed first, such as lack of affordable after-school programs, crime, escalating rents, poverty, etc. How will this project help? Well, this project is obviously not going to be a end-all be-all for the work that the city of Chicago and other public entities are doing in North Lawndale. But, obviously the health and recreational aspects of it are important. But, other services and efforts are being made to, this is not the only city's engagement with North Lawndale. And so I want to just kind of try to keep it on topic here. And also
Can I answer that too?
Oh, quick? Yeah, sorry, Alderman. I thought you just, I didn't realize.
No, my hand wasn't up. It's been up. You can I'll take my hand down. But as it relates to this question, how will this specific project help? So when you invest in a community and you have investments such as this, then it gathers other investment. And so what is going to happen is not just a focus on the line itself, but the focus on the community area in and around the line. And I don't know if David is going to focus on this a little bit later, but there are points in and around the line where there will be affordable housing. There will be economic development, which brings jobs, which helps with poverty. It helps with the escalating rent. And when you do all of these activities in and around North Lawndale, the more activity you have, it is a proven fact, the more that you have engaged and positive and activities that are going to be pushing things in the right way, then that kind of drowns out the negative energy. It doesn't do all of it. It doesn't get rid of all of the crime. But if you have grocery stores and you have jobs and you have economic development and you have affordable housing, and you have all of these things, it is a cyclical issue that kind of works with them all, and it helps bring down all of the things that you're talking about, like crime, poverty, escalating rents, and so on.
Thank you, Alderman. Yeah, that's an excellent answer there. So speaking to that, we do want to move on and talk about some of the, the redevelopment concepts that we're looking at here, because this is not just a planned framework plan for the trail, but also for the economic development impact. I do see that there's one person with a hand raised, so I'm going to Patrick Bolger, you can speak up now, and then I think we're gonna have to move on to the next section after that.
Okay,
Oh, can I
thanks.
say one other, wait, real quick, can I say one other thing, Brian? I'm sorry.
Yeah.
But when we're talking about investment, you know, I don't think this investment comes on the back of the city of Chicago. This is a really large investment. And while the country is doing this infrastructure package, it is, you know, up to city officials like myself, our commissioner, our mayor, to go after those big federal dollars to bring back. So it would not be an investment that would take away from what we would be doing in terms of investment in North Lawndale. It would be an additional investment. And, you know, who doesn't want money on top of the money that they're already spending?
Excellent, thanks. And sorry, Patrick, just a moment. Yeah, I want to acknowledge Ike's comments in the chat here as well, that you know, as a potential partnership with the Lions Hope Academy and other you know, youth institutions, educational institutions in the community. This is, you know, it can't just be a sort of unilateral investment that takes place and then it's on the city to, you know, maintain partnerships with local institutions who can, you know, come in and kind of take some level of ownership and you know, contribute to the ongoing like activation of these spaces is going to be key, because, you know, this is it's a big lift. And, you know, we've learned from seeing like the 606, there was a lot of community involvement. There are a lot of partners in that. And, you know, we're looking not just there, but at other national examples as well, to, you know, how to best leverage, you know, community support for, you know, making a project like this a success, beyond just going out and finding funding for it. So Patrick, thanks for your patience, and please go ahead.
Thanks, Brian. And you pretty much hit it on the head for what I was going to say. I'm a volunteer with Hope Academy and the Lions for Hope. And so we are integrated into this neighborhood already. We're at the exact east end of the facility. We've actually spent quite a bit of money on that piece of property at the east end of the line. We did some environmental studies trying to buy the property from the city. So we've got a stake in that already. I love this plan. I love this idea. I love the 606. I think you guys have made a giant jump forward. So I'm really excited about it. I think what we can come to the table with is this sports facility. Our whole goal as a foundation is to get the kids in the neighborhood playing sports, because I believe and we believe sports are the answer to a lot of the issues these kids have. So we're excited about this. The fact that it could be a way that kids could get to our sports facility by bike and you know, actually enjoy getting there. There's nothing on this that I don't see that we couldn't help and support getting behind and working with you guys. I guess my question would be is, how do we do that? How do we make sure we're in this conversation with you guys? I mean, this kind of format is perfect. I love it. And the fact that we get the neighborhood and other people involved. We've tried to start community gardens on our facility and have struggled a little bit getting more community involvement. So we're open and looking forward to you know, this joint venture. And I guess I'm just statement for the group and whatever us understand, you know, the process and move forward. We really want to get going, and I know how long that something like this could take. So, you know, integrating it with what we want to do fast track wise, because we're a private organization and can move a lot faster than a city. You know, I guess that's where I see a little bit of rub that I would love to help organize and get better prepared to make this work the best it can.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Patrick. And I'm really glad to know that, you know, we've got, you know, interest from organizations like, you know, the Hope Academy. So, you know, I mean, I think that right now, you know, being really early on in the process, the best that we can do is to start to make these connections. And I think it kind of, you know, kind of kill two birds with one stone here and address some of these comments that are in the interactive polling by, you know, just saying that we have had some conversations, not actually with having a chance to speak with Hope Academy yet, but been talking to, you know, other, you know, major community partners as part of this process and doing some stakeholder interviews, particularly with, you know, we spoke with like UCAN and, you know, quite a few others that I'm kind of blanking on right now. I apologize. I don't have one on the tip of my tongue, but we've done a number of stakeholder interviews. You know, we talked to Cinespace and just other major players who are in the vicinity of the line here about how we can leverage that potential interest and partnerships. But I think that, as the city looks to pursue funding for a project like this, and we look at, like where some of the investments might be made to create, public amenity, that we would start to look to partners and see, how that can be leveraged as an additional resource. So I know we really got to move on here. Jesse, if I'll kind of give you the floor here before we go to the next section.
Yeah, just really quick, Brian. I just want to notify anybody on the call, including you, Patrick. North Lawndale Community Coordinating Council has been identified as a community engagement body representing the Alderman's office and the community on this. So if you're interested in participating in this process, please feel free to reach out to us. I put my contact information in the chat for anyone that's interested in participating in this.
Fantastic.
Thanks, Jesse. David, you can go back to sharing your screen.
Awesome. Yeah, no, this was great. Good conversation, and exactly what we wanted, just to kind of share where we are and to get additional sort of input on some of the thoughts. But really great to see the positive collaborative energy, and we're kind of going to move on to the focus areas, which is really the purpose of this study around both understanding the opportunity for this recreation and sort of ecological, natural, sort of linear park idea in tandem with the opportunities for economic development, jobs, and housing, kind of, and how that all fits together. So, we've started to look at this in a couple of buckets. Starting with, sort of Home and Square and really building on the momentum of Home and Square and Lawndale Plaza, and how can we improve the Lawndale Plaza as an asset, build on the work that, has already happened with North Lawndale Employment Network, and we'll share some ideas around, how we can, sort of use design to improve what that could be. And then Home and Square, of course, there's all these things happening there, but there's also some opportunities with vacant Allstate building, the parking deck, the administrative building, and other opportunities. Looking at this idea of reactivating historic and culture hubs, so really understanding the context of the Central Park Theater and what's around it and the opportunity there. And then looking at opportunities around, supporting housing and fostering jobs around both an existing economic and jobs anchor, as well as potential for a new one to the east. So with that, I'll hand it over to Catherine Darnstadt of Layden Design.
Yeah, thank you, David. Hi, everyone. I'm Catherine Darnstadt with Layden Design. We've been working, looking at how do we couple these development opportunities that are adjacent to the rail that have strategic importance, as David mentioned, and also how do we build on existing community priorities and initiatives that are happening and think about that through a lens of near term, meaning 1 through 5 years, long term, and then overall, longer even than a decade out. And so with that, we want to focus on and talk through these 5 areas. It'll be a lot of information, and we'll pause partway through to answer some questions. Please feel free to drop questions in the chat, and I'll try and answer them as I'm going through. But we'll start with, the momentum. Let's build on the momentum at Home and Square and Lawndale Plaza. And so if you go to the next slide, we could start to talk about Home and Square. And what you'll see on our series of images, this is talking just to start about the existing conditions that we have around where the Home and Square focus area encompasses all of the existing Home and Square Foundation, some existing community organizations like the YMCA, and then also DRW School. We also are looking at existing buildings that are vacant, or also could be potential for rehab or vacant sites like the Allstate building and the Sears administration building and the parking lot also along on Arlington. If we think about that, is we wanted to start with this because Holman is also the existing access point of how everyone's getting up on the trail. So it makes sense that we want to focus any initial activations and attention building capacity around this site. And most of it is justified to the north side of the line. We also wanted to look at the south side of the line and see that there are a couple underutilized elements that maybe we could take advantage of. Item D on the plan is there are existing parking lots just south of the rail that are currently used for the CPD facility, but could have a long-term higher and best use. And then also what you're seeing on this line is the really close proximity to two other key focus areas that we'll be talking about, Lawndale Plaza and then also Central Park Theater. If you go to the next slide, we start to think about what's the vision, what could be the vision for this particular focus area. And we want to think about it as supporting more residential and more retail, mostly more residential and some new retail spaces, knowing that more retail will be happening at Lawndale Plaza and the adjacent Central Park focus area in terms of proposals that we are recommending. We are thinking about adaptive reuse of the Allstate building, and then also thinking about the future as this line becomes an amenity and more people are coming to use it. We see that there will be a need for both parking for these new facilities and then parking for people who are using the line. So thinking about how we could reuse the existing parking structure as both, a rehabbed element, but also potentially considering the top floor as a community solar rooftop project. And really, can we start to think of a variety of large, horizontal spaces, parking lots, roofs, things like that as part of a larger community solar project that could exist adjacent to the rail itself. So on the north side of the building, north side of the rail, we're looking at some more dense structures. You see in the upper right, you see the yellow kind of L. We'll see that as what we want to focus on as an opportunity site. So in this focus area, that becomes the first area that we would look at for potential new development. But we really want to focus on bringing forward rehab development to Allstate, to the administrative building and elsewhere in this area. And then if you go to the next slide, we looked at a lot of great examples that are already existing across the city, looking at diverse housing opportunities in different scales. In the Holman Square focus area, we have both multi-story residential, 4 and 5 stories, but then also we're thinking about townhomes, 2 and 3 story residential townhomes as part of that housing stock. We're thinking about what are trail access points and thinking about, as was mentioned in the chat, accessibility, multimodal, how much width and space can, multiple bikes, people, activities happen. And we're thinking about how that trail access looks both on the north side of the trail and the south side of the trail to be able to grab people from both sides of the neighborhood. And then also looking at some great examples of adaptive reuse structures for both office and job creation, but then also for housing opportunities. So the top one is an example of an old warehouse that became office, and we have tons of great examples across Chicago and in the area of that. And then the bottom is an example of how we might be able to, reface or reskin an existing parking structure so that it starts to become more attractive and integrated into the neighborhood. And then the next slide. This is what we're starting to envision. So this is a very early massing diagram of thinking about, what we have currently. The view on the left is the current view. We're looking west on Arlington, roughly a little bit past Kedzie. You see the Allstate building in the background, the existing parking lot on the left, and then the parking garage on the right itself. On the right-hand side, you see a new image of, well, this is what it could start to feel on that streetscape. So that same view you'll have potentially could have a new multi-story residential building. It could be 4 stories, it could be 5 stories, but thinking about residential, thinking about a larger scale building because there's higher density already happening at that intersection and at that particular zone in the neighborhood. And then also looking on the right as how could that garage start to be refaced and reskinned so that you could have a more attractive front, and then integrating the community solar on the rooftop itself. Also what you'll see repeatedly throughout these slides and in these focus areas are a need for enhanced streetscape, wider sidewalks, bump outs for traffic calming, more landscape, more greenery. You'll see that throughout as a recommendation that we're moving forward. So that closes out Homan Square, and now we want to move on just adjacent to the existing Lawndale Plaza. And so this is encompassing all of Lawndale Plaza itself as it currently exists as a shopping mall. And we're seeing, 2 main opportunities that we're looking at there. One is, thinking about rehab opportunities and adaptive reuse and new programming in the vacant Cineplex theater. And then also thinking about opportunities to add more density or micro retail or small scale retail to the parking lot to provide more frontage on both Holman and Roosevelt Road. And that came out of direct conversations that we were starting to hear from, North Lawndale Employment Network and Staines Family Foundation about their goals of bringing more Black-owned businesses and supporting more entrepreneurship in the neighborhood. And so thinking about building more spaces, both retail and then office spaces for those individuals to be able to open up and grow in. Next slide. And this is what we start to see in terms of kind of the massing and the scale. We want to build on from left to right. We want to build on the new outdoor plaza that North Lawndale Employment Network just created in their in the rehab bank building. So bringing that outdoor space across both the street and the street to a new retail development that includes smaller retail development, but individual buildings in the parking lot itself. That'll wrap around to also provide new retail frontage on Roosevelt, and then provide an expanded landscape buffer along Roosevelt to enhance that experience if you're walking up and down the street itself. And then next slide. Again, always have great examples of how we could create promenades or more enhanced both landscape areas to allow for people to both pass through, bring additional shade and comfort, but then also provide opportunities for different retail infill that's well designed, but also at a smaller square footage so that there are more tenant opportunities available. On the far right, that particular column, we're starting to look at adaptive reuse examples for the Cineplex building. And we have some great examples from an adaptive reuse of a job training center on the south side, or thinking about the Cristo Rey example is a big box retail turned into a high school here in Chicago. And next slide. And then here, starting to look at, again, existing photo on the left of the parking lot looking north on Homan towards the employment network. And then thinking about on the image on the right, what does this new retail look and feel like? How can you start to walk down a new kind of streetscape and have businesses along that new streetscape within the parking lot, but not block any views. So as a business owner, you'll be able to be visible from the main corridors, but as a pedestrian, you'll be able to start to circulate through and be able to come off the rail very quickly to these new businesses. So I saw some comments about bringing more programming to the rail. That's great. So that is a great suggestion that we'll look into, but it's also thinking about what is appropriate programming that can attract people off the rail and pull someone down and have those adjacencies be complementary to each other. All right, next slide. And so those were the first two areas that we're looking at. So those become priority areas for building on momentum. And we would see those as kind of like early activation pushes for proposals or for development. So I want to pause here and ask these two questions that you see on the screen. Do those focus areas, these visions align with the community aspirations? And are they still tracking with what you've previously shared with us in community meetings? And are there additional elements we should offer? So feel free to drop that in the chat or raise your hand if you want to comment before we move on to the next three sites.
Thanks so much, Catherine. Yeah, that was an excellent presentation on the those two focus areas there. Just same approach as before for everyone here that I'm going to pull up the interactive polling here and share my screen. So for those folks who don't wish to unmute and speak up, you can enter. Sorry.
And we'll drop, oh, there it is. It was the link and the number was dropped in the chat again.
Yeah, so as you make your comments here, they'll pop up there. And then let's see if we've got, thanks to Brenda Palms for joining, and you know, definitely the work that North Lawndale Employment Network is doing and has done at their center in the Lawndale Plaza is really important to helping, you know, build a you know, an active environment there. And that's kind of, you know, that's the kind of thing that we're hoping to build off of. Yeah, we had comments from Anne Maria, who big advocate for aquaponics. So a point taken from there that you know, there are a lot of ways to green the neighborhood for sure. Yeah, you know, we understand, and I think that, you know, like to your comment about the community solar, you know, we are looking at ways to you know, not just reactivate some of these spaces, but also make them you know, exemplary in terms of sustainability. And you know, particularly when we're talking about integrating, you know, the this kind of green belt with the trail, that the kind of you know, sustainable environmental aspects of something like that, turning an old rail line into a community park, we would hope would spill over into you know, some of the development and you know, kind of be a theme there. So yeah, certainly points well taken. And let's see, a couple of comments in the mentee polling here. I think the Allstate building would be great for artist lofts, studios, galleries, performance space, especially since Sears CEO Julius Rosenwald was a major supporter of Black artists. Yeah, that's an excellent comment. And it, you know, there's a huge amount of potential with the Allstate building. And I think that probably any redevelopment or reuse of that would involve, you know, city incentives. And anytime that, you know, that's the case, we certainly look to prioritize community benefits and, you know, local employment, but also, you know, tenants that are going to have a local benefit and a local angle to them. So, you know, yeah, there's a ton of opportunity there. It's a gigantic building that is long just been sitting vacant and inactive and not giving anything back. But, you know, we see Homan Square as like the kind of the heart of this study area here, and an area where there's a lot of great success stories that have already happened. And, you know, we had our last meeting at DRW High School there. So there's you know, good stories that are already occurring there. And we think that there's, you know, more coming in the future as well. And that Allstate building will be a big part of that. Given the 5 focus areas, is it too early to share possible public safety facilities, CPD, CFD, and or technology monitoring applications that would benefit the community? Also, will bike station amenities, repair, divvy, scooter rental be part, yeah, I'm assuming be part of the project? I mean, I think that, so we've talked about public safety before, and, a public safety strategy isn't, as you can see, we're trying to cover a lot of ground here, and what we're looking at in this plan. A public safety plan is not necessarily part of it, but I think just kind of speaking to that in broader terms, taking some of these spaces right now that are, locations for things like fly dumping, and, they're poorly lit and they're overgrown right now. And so, putting in public infrastructure there that would activate those spaces, I think would just be a big step forward in terms of making them more active and secure, and make folks feel safer there. But, anytime that a project like this occurs, of course, we would partner with the police department, just in terms of, what the, what the coverage would be in terms of, their beats and things like that. For retail,
Brian,
yeah, go ahead.
So I would also say that public safety is designed based on what is going to be there. This is a conceptual plan. So, we can't really determine the public safety strategies in and around this new stuff. So I think it is just a little bit too early, but once, things are kind of locked down and more in place, I think that we can then begin to talk about public safety strategies in and around the Homeland Square area, the 5 focus areas. One thing that I would also mention is there is also currently right now a police station that houses all of the police's ancillary things, like the Mountie unit and the Coast Guard unit, or the Aquamarine unit. I don't know what it's called, the detectives and all of that. And that's right behind that. I would actually like for that to go, because it's a huge space similar to that of the Allstate building and the Sears building, and I think it could be reused for something. But I digress, because I think that is a little bit too early to talk about. But I think it's something that as soon as we get more concrete, we can talk about public safety strategies in and around the 5 focus areas.
Thank you, Alderman. I also realized too, I didn't really address the bike station amenity comment. So, that's again, something that's probably a little more further off, but, CDOT would, be, as this moves forward, probably the lead for this, and CDOT manages the Divvy program, and other similar. I guess they don't really have anything to do with scooters, but anyhow, just in the same way that when they're looking to locate a new station, sit around like another existing open space amenity in the city, like a public park. This would be considered in that. So, certainly you'd want to integrate the existing Divvy facilities and program to, leverage something like this. So for retail spaces, does that mean chain retail stores or opportunity and financial support for local small businesses? So support for local small businesses is something that we already do in North Lawndale through, programs like the Neighborhood Opportunity Fund and the Small Business Improvement Fund, and even to, maybe a larger scale extent, the TIF program. So, this is looking at how retail could, grow in these redevelopment areas, or focus areas, as we're calling them. And, hopefully complement the businesses that are already there, and provide better amenities, retail amenities to the community, and serve more a practical function. Bringing we've done work before around like market studies here, and it's people in North Lawndale have to travel outside of the community to kind of meet basic needs in a lot of cases. So hopefully growth of retail and commercial in some of these focus areas would, help address that challenge. April Campbell commented or asked, will this new development become a catalyst for more metered parking in these areas? So, we are considering parking strategies, and it's kind of on a focus area, like a case-by-case basis here. I think that to avoid having to build, large amounts of surface parking, metered parking would, it's a lever you can, pull to try to better manage the parking that's already there, and encourage turnover so that people can pull up and get a better space in front of the business. So it's certainly something that would be under consideration. I know it's not everyone's favorite thing in the world, but it does certainly help for allowing us to not build so much surface parking to support businesses, because
There's already a lot of surface parking there in the plaza, as well as the parking deck is about 1,000 spaces. So there's a lot of capacity already there that's untapped as well.
I was going to say the same thing, and to that point, I think there had to be a lot of development along this line, and a lot of investment to get to the point where we would do metered parking. Again, this is far-reaching, and this may take several years, maybe even decades, in order for this to come to fruition. So I think the meter parking is far down the line, and anything that we do now would surface, we'd have more than enough surface.
Yeah, definitely. And there's a lot of vacant land and parking to go around. So it's a kind of a as needed. It's an option that could be considered. I see that Patrick Bolger, you have your hand raised, and then
just a quick FYI. We worked with our community activist at the Hope there, and she got a divvy station set up right across from our facility. So divvy stations are doable and workable in that neighborhood. The only thing that maybe somebody on this line could address is I never realized, most of these kids in that neighborhood don't have credit cards. And so maybe there's a program, and it's not part of this phone call, but we need to figure out a way that divvy works for that neighborhood.
Thanks, Patrick. It's again, like it's more of a I don't want to speak for CDOT on that, but I know that they've been really responsive to kind of changing. They have a lot of data around it, so they're very responsive to the patterns that they see. Jesse, you have your hand raised?
Yeah, I just wanted to speak to that. The NLCCC Transportation Committee has brought 2 divvy stations to the community. So we would work, our transportation chair, Rochelle, is actually a part of this committee. So we would be working with divvy to figure out the right location for this overall project.
Okay.
Jesse, the Transportation Committee has brought, I think, a total of 12 new divvy stations to North Lawndale. Not just 2, they've done 12 all in and around the community.
That's fantastic. And again, I know it doesn't belong in this conversation, but let's figure out a way that the kids can actually use those damn things.
All right, everyone. Thank you for those really great comments. Another good discussion. I see some open comments in the Q&A, so we'll address that as we're starting to move to the next 3 focus areas and share a little bit more detail on that. In the meantime, while we're waiting for David to pull back up the presentation, April, I see your comment about ongoing public safety and the comparison and the statistics. When the 606 opened up, there was a spike in crime as it opened up. And so as we're moving forward with this, as this gets developed further, thinking about always thinking about public safety, thinking about security, lighting, access points, all of that will be taken into consideration, and it will probably shift as new information becomes available or more technologies become available moving forward. I see also, Sherry, your note about a future where, cars won't be as prioritized. And yes, this is also fits into that. So thinking about having another mode of transportation, and a beautiful mode of transportation and greenway to get from west to east through the Altenheim line. It will be fantastic. So this is also what we started to think about as part of these various focus areas. As I mentioned previously, there's always a component of enhanced streetscape, and that enhanced streetscape starts to consider wider sidewalks, more greenery, so that ultimately, you know, we're not only thinking about what you're experiencing on the trail, but what you're experiencing getting to the trail. And we want that to be a fantastic experience overall. Moving forward, we have, we want to look at Central Park Theater. This particular focus area is at Central Park in Roosevelt and is really anchored as an active destination and a cultural destination anchored by the future renovation of the Central Park Theater. We do see quite a few opportunities to reclaim vacant land with future development. We have, it looks like we have 6 parcels that are vacant right around this area. And if you go to the next slide, this is what started to drive this particular area as new housing and also mixed use and some micro retail, kind of thinking about various areas and new commercial. So you have a lot of potential future development happening as part of our recommendation, happening along the Central Park focus area. We're looking to tie in some of the housing on the north. If you have your hand, David, where we have new multifamily 5 to 6 stories and new rehab 4-story development. That's all tying in at that northeast section of the focus area, tying in with the adjacent housing and scale across the street. As we get to the intersection itself at Central Park and Roosevelt, we want to enhance the existing buildings, but then also build new dense development that allows for ground floor retail to really anchor that as a corner and then anchor that as a pathway and access point to the rail itself. We're also looking at opportunities between Central Park Theater and on the Central Park Theater and the church property itself. How could they enhance their property and think about their parking lot also as an opportunity for more micro businesses that could go there, that could support theater functions and events. So really thinking about in the future, thinking about kind of spot and transient uses that might support an event space. If you go to the next slide. Always lots of great examples in Chicago. Again, seeing some on the left, some examples of multifamily new construction housing that exists in the neighborhood. I mean, in the city currently, that has really dynamic ground floor retail or other ground floor activities. In the center, looking at commercial and micro retail examples. And then on the right, thinking about examples of historic renovations for art and culture. So comparing Stony Island Art Bank size and scale and the Central Park Theater itself. And both are, I was just in the theater a couple months ago for the biennial, and it's still like every time you go in, it's just a fantastic space. Moving forward to the next slide, thinking about what we have currently, looking east on Roosevelt, and then thinking about the future where we could have a development that we have new multi-story mixed-use residential on both sides of the street, an enhanced streetscape throughout. So looking at wider sidewalks, more greenery, possibly traffic calming features and bump outs that might exist to slow down traffic on Roosevelt to make it a better pedestrian experience. And then starting to think about on the right-hand side of that image, the micro retail that could exist on the Central Park Theater property and parking lot. If you go to the next slide. So the next area we want to look at is Pulaski. So we're moving further west, and Pulaski, we're looking at still focused on missing middle housing. So still residential, but want to scale down a little bit and look at housing on the north side of the line and another access point or access park on the north side, but taking advantage of those large section of vacant lots that is titled A, and then looking at improvements on the south side of the lot, which are currently the Color Communications property and their associated parking lots that are with them, that they use. And so seeing this, you're looking at an enhanced kind of north side of the line to be able to bring different scales of housing, looking at both 2 and 3 flats, and then townhomes, and then also, you know, multifamily residential along Pulaski itself. So we have a great variety of housing opportunities that could fit in that northern parcels, to take advantage of not only the adjacent school, but then a proposed new access line to the rail itself. So this becomes an amazing amenity, that whole area at Pulaski and the Altenheim line itself. If you move forward. And again, different examples we're sharing of, you know, the scale of townhomes, residential, thinking about townhomes in the middle, townhomes along an access trail. You see the example from Bloomingdale Trail, and along the 606. And then also looking at different kind of play areas that could be associated with that park itself. It doesn't have to be, it could be natural play areas, it could be more active play areas. So we have opportunities to add more programming to the access areas off the line itself. And then on the right, examples of the improved public realm. You know, talking about parking lots isn't necessarily the sexiest thing in the world, but you could definitely make it look better too, and kind of feel that edge and kind of feel that it's welcome and integrated and safe as you're walking past it. Next slide. And so this starts to think about Pulaski, Pulaski going from this access park on the right-hand side, going to the line, and then walking past a new multi-story residential building. You know, if it's 4 stories or 3 stories, we'll think about that scale, but then knowing you're kind of elevating and ramping up to the line itself. So this also helps to create a transition area from at grade to the elevated line, and also becomes a new accessible access point. And then finally, you know, I saw there was a couple comments that came in. You know, we see residential being part of a component that complements the future Roosevelt Costner Invest Southwest site. So hopefully that decision will be shared coming soon. But that also makes kind of anchors this idea of the western edge of the trail becomes an economic hub, and then the eastern end around this campus green and the Hope Academy site can also become an economic hub and a gateway and access point to the trail. Currently where this ends is a trail. This trail actually narrows and then turns to join the existing kind of Metra and CSX line. So it joins an active rail. So we really want to look at being able to terminate the kind of the accessible part of the trail down into a new access park, and really build on some of the great energy and development that the Hope Academy has done on the north of the rail itself. On this plan for existing UC, item A is one of an existing multi-story kind of like masonry and heavy timber building that's currently vacant, and then that's surrounded by a large amount of parking and vacant space, which is noted as B. And then if you go to the next slide, we'll start to see, so this we're looking at to the north of the line, the new access park tying in with Hope Academy and bringing people up and down to the trail itself, possibly taking advantage, as you saw from the earlier slides that were shared about the landscape plan. Could this take advantage of the elevation change and be a berm or sledding hill, you know, become more active in a landscaped amenity? And on the south side of the rail, we're looking at rehabbing that existing structure, which is about 86,000 square feet, and looking for use for that. And then looking also at the possibility of new light industrial that could be adjacent to that building or complement that particular building and the adjacent vacant lots, because there are a variety of existing light industrial or office warehouse spaces around this section of the line. We felt this could be, you know, a great complement, and also could be a great jobs hub, an employment opportunity, depending on the employer that comes there. If you go to the next slide, we'll have again some examples of thinking about what adaptive reuse of historic structures could look like. How could we bring in light, bring in more programming, and then how do we think about architecturally significant big box retail? So on the far right side, you'll see some examples of larger scale buildings that don't just have to feel so, what would be the word that I would be looking for? Don't have to feel so harsh, right? We can make larger scale industrial buildings feel welcome and scaled appropriately to where they are situated, and really build on the amenity of the rail itself. And to close out for these focus areas, this is what we're seeing now on the left. It's a view on Washtenaw looking north towards Roosevelt. So you see the existing, behind the tree, you see the existing heavy timber and masonry building, thinking about that being adaptive reuse, becoming active, and then a new light industrial building adjacent to that with complementary improved landscape, and then shared parking for both the buildings, but then also potentially for trail access. I mean, if I go sledding, I have a sled. I mean, that might be hard for you to get there on a bike in the snow. So you might be driving for that particular activity. And we want to think through to make sure that space is provided and available for all different ways that people are going to come and activate and use this rail. So again, we'll go to the next slide and pause here for some additional comments and questions about those three areas that we just shared, the focus areas of Central Park, Pulaski, and Campus Green.
Thanks again, Catherine. Yeah, so we'll open it up again here, and I'll put the interactive poll up for folks to also engage with.
And again, we dropped the link in the chat to the Menti poll. And then I do see a question in the chat about displacement or relocation strategies. We did talk about that on a previous meeting, and there has been extensive kind of thought going around thinking about housing security and thinking about housing safety, and knowing what happened, both in terms of what improvements can do to the surrounding housing stock. So that's where we focus a lot on residential development to provide a variety of different housing stock and types for affordability. I think also your question, and clarify if I'm missing this, I think you're also looking at what sort of wraparound services might be able to provide to help those who are experiencing housing insecurity and drug addiction. Our hope through this is that this development continues to support existing organizations that are providing that, and find new spaces and expanded spaces and services for them to continue to service the communities that they need. Go ahead, Jesse.
And yeah, thank you. The Alderman has ensured that we put systems in place early on to try to curtail displacement of individuals in the community. So this is the beginning stages of this. And as I mentioned, we've been working on this for about 8 months, and we're working with local partners, housing partners, the Department of Housing for the city, to ensure that that has been a priority from day one for the Alderman, and that's been the charge. And we're making sure that we reduce those chances and ensuring that existing residents are able to maintain their homes, even by thinking about things like tax freezes and different types of programs. I'm sure the Alderman is going to comment on this.
I certainly would like to. The difference, I think, between this and any other project, first of all, is the amount of city land that is owned. And when you own the land, you're able to control the price. And that's first and foremost. So, when we're building new homes, similar to the 1,000 new homes that we're trying to bring to North Lawndale, those are all going to be affordable housing. And if I have my druthers, every piece of property that we're going to put up is going to be affordable. As it relates to what Jesse said, the homeowners that currently live here, making sure that we put everything in place and putting every lever that the Department of Housing has to make sure that folks who own here are able to stay here. I don't think that an alderman, I've been here for my entire life. So I'm 45 years old, been here for, every day of my life, except for the 6 years I went away to school at Morehouse College and came back home. That being said, I cannot live with myself if the people who have been here each and every day who are indigenous to this community are going to be moved out with the bringing of this line. If that's the case, then I don't want to do it. And so everything in my power, as long as I am the person sitting in the seat as the alderman, we're going to do everything that we need to do to make sure that everybody who is here is able to afford to stay here, and anybody who comes are going to have some affordable living so that our community can be whole.
Thanks, Alderman. Yeah, I'd just like to echo what I said before as well, too, that, the Alderman can vouch, DPD and DOH and, other city departments, as well as other, sister agencies, North Lawndale is, I think, getting a lot of attention right now, particularly because of the Mayor's Invest Southwest initiative, that is complementary and related to this project. And, there are efforts to look at affordable rental housing. To the comment about the 1,000 homes or, rebuilding Chicago project, that will be delivering affordable units for homes for sale too. So, Richard Townsell is obviously actively involved in that, as well as others, but, the city's contributing funding to remediate parcels, as well as, provide the land. So I also wanted to, I saw April Campbell has her hand raised. So here, there you go. I just gave you the permission to unmute. So go ahead.
Oh, thanks, Brian. So I don't know why that question submitted anonymously, but I submitted that question and you all did a great job answering. Thank you, Alderman Scott. But I was more so concerned about the kind of drug addicts that kind of hang out, those that are housing insecure. I know by some of the entry points that have been kind of explored through the presentation, they're little settlements of people. I live about 2 blocks away from the Lawndale Plaza, and when I walk my dog, I see a bunch of people. So I'm just kind of interested in the findings of how would they be I want them kind of removed. I hate to use such punitive language, but I just don't want them to say, well, since they're doing stuff here, let's go move 2 blocks, east or something. What kind of options are kind of being put forth so that they can kind of aggregate in a better fashion, if that makes any sense.
So yeah, I think that makes perfect sense. There are 2 things and two thoughts around that, and I want to be really sensitive around the homeless population, not just in North Lawndale, but in the city of Chicago. If there's public land, people can be there. It's not a crime to be homeless. It's not a crime to pitch your tent, in a public place and kind of hang out. It's not a crime. And when it becomes a public nuisance, if you will, police still they're not going to do much about that. Now, what I will say is this administration and this mayor is investing in homeless folks who are housing insecure, and putting, some of those federal dollars that we got from ARPA grant, and put that towards homelessness. And so hopefully that will help us as it relates to homeless across the city of Chicago. That is a really, really fine line to walk. What I will say about development, when you develop and you start to move people in and it becomes densely populated, those elements that are unsavory, if you will, start to move into other areas where they can kind of slip into obscurity. The squeaky wheel gets the oil, if you will. So when people are calling about derelicts and folks kind of just hanging out, the police are going to come more, and the more folks that you have and the more calls that you have and the more calls for services you're going to have, the more people are going to get out there. And just like anybody else, like crime element, homeless people do not like to be bothered in the space that they're in. And so that kind of naturally moves them out of the way. long story short, though, we all have to work at this problem. It's not something that, I think the city's going to do. Is not something that the state's going to do with the Department of Families, Children and Family Services. Is going to happen. This is going to be a all hands on deck. And again, we're going to have to ask folks that are in our in the private sector to kind of help us move some of those people and champion some of the things that you talked about. But I do understand, and we will continue to work as a city to make sure that they're given the dignity that they deserve as humans, but still move them into a place that that gives the other folks that are in and around the area a better quality of life.
Thanks a lot, Alderman. Yeah, that's obviously a difficult question to take on, and a little outside of like what we're looking at in the study, but this is why we hold meetings like this too, to get that perspective, from folks like yourself, April, and residents who live in the area and are going to be impacted by this. And so yeah, I really appreciate your perspective on that. I wanted to address the one that's in the poll window here of whether we're decades away from groundbreaking and what would come first, the trail improvements or collateral developments. So, the way that we look at this, first of all, a framework plan such as this is, anticipating, more detailed like engineering and design studies that would take place to follow this. But this is a very key first step that needs to be made. So if funding comes around, an opportunity, there are funding mechanisms out there that we could pursue, but you have to go to the community first. You have to show that you put the work in with looking at the existing conditions and everything that we're taking a look at here. So we could have just come and done a plan of saying, oh, okay, there's this elevated rail line here. And we want to do like, a landscape plan or for this whole thing and just look at that. But, we realize, and this is, driven by the vision of the Alderman and Commissioner Cox from DPD, that, it's not just the improvement itself. It's not just the future trail opportunity. It's that there are all of these, areas in proximity to it, within walking distance, that have a lot of potential. There's a lot of city-owned land. There's a lot of vacant land. North Lawndale is a community, like I already mentioned, that the city is prioritizing in West Southwest. And so, when there is an opportunity, hopefully, there's no timeline on it, but to pursue funding to begin construction on, the trail or some section of it, that when the interest is, the real estate development interest is, spurred because of that, we already went to the community. We've already taken a look at, these kind of market conditions to say, look, here are the opportunities here. And that, like, when developers come to DPD, for plan development applications or, something like that in this area, that we're going to hold them to, the recommendations of this plan, even if it's not going to, the footprint of the building might be different or the exact height of it might be different. But, when projects go to plan commission, we have to show that it aligns with the planning work that the department has done in the past. So this is, going to have an important influence on what gets built in the future. And then I would just also say, like I said, there's no timeline on this as of right now. And we're also taking a look at ways of implementation. What are the possible steps that could be made? Maybe a couple of like maybe a 2-3 block section of this gets improved as kind of like a pilot for what it could be, when there's future capital funding available. So, there are a number of ways to take this on, and kind of to get to the comments made by the Hope Academy folks earlier. It could be a situation where it's like, hey, we have a really good partner that's a potential partner in this part of the rail line section here. So maybe that's a place where we start. So there's a lot of ways that it could be done that impact the timeline of it, and that'll be in the final plan. We'll talk about implementation.
Well, let me say one thing about that too, Brian. I'm sorry. So I'd like to temper expectations, because in reality, with the the dollars that the federal government is throwing around in terms of infrastructure, something can come along sooner rather than later. There is no real timetable, but I do want to temper folks' expectations with the 606. It took, several years of planning, and it took, I think, another 7 years to get the money. And so I just want to make sure that we're putting out this plan. One, we have a really good plan, but two, it is supported by community, which gives us the opportunity to then go to people who are ready to fund projects like this and say, hey, we have the community support. We have a great plan. All we needed you to do is fund that. And that's why it's important for everybody to be here. But, even with that happening, it may not get funded. And so I just want to make sure that everybody's tempered. And that's why I say it could be several decades in happening. I would say, as an alderman who really is aggressive in terms of development, I'm trying to get this done as soon as possible. This is something that I think is really necessary, and I'm going to go fight and talk to our federal partners like Congressman Davis and our two senators, Duckworth and Durbin, who I have relationships with all of them, and see what kind of money they can bring back to Illinois to make sure that something like this happens.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Alderman. And the work that we're doing here, I can't say enough about how important it is to go and make a case for that funding. And there are several projects like this that are out there in the city right now. That they're kind of teed up, but there might be things that are with the conditions or with community outreach that are preventing them from moving forward. So that's kind of what we're hoping to address here, is just get it in a place where we're facilitating for that funding, and it's making a case that, hey, look, we've gone out, we've laid the groundwork for it. This is a worthwhile opportunity to invest in, and this plan will be the proof of that. So I don't really see many other questions in terms of, this. Thank you everyone for the comments and for your feedback here, and, for the conversation around some of these, the issues, particularly around support services and, what, the options are that are out there. I think, it's been pretty well addressed here. Outside of these focus areas that we've been discussing here, if there are any broader comments or questions that folks would like to ask here, I think we can just open it up. We've got plenty of time here, 14 minutes left. But I'd also like to mention too. Well, I guess David, we've got our next step slide. So why don't I hand it off to you to bring back up the presentation? I'll let you take us out there. I forgot we're not on our last slides yet. So.
Yeah, one more slide. So just really quickly on next steps, we're still having potentially a stakeholder meeting or two, kind of to share our progress with sort of some of the established forums like the Invest Southwest group, et cetera. And then we'll start to really, bring all of this feedback that we heard in the first and second in this meeting together, make adjustments to some of the design ideas and the recommendations, and start to put together a draft report, that'll probably come out in January sometime. And put together some updated visuals and that sort of thing. But we're kind of really excited to kind of put this together and at the opportunity here, and to really make sure that at the end of the day, it's all coming together. It's holistic. It's thoughtful about not just design and development, but all of the things that sort of connect to that, to livability, to walkability, to jobs and economic development, that all of those things really come together to, be spoken of, and that they're cognizant and part of this plan. So that's kind of where we're headed, to sort of wrap up this part of the effort, but really excited about hopefully more phases to come in the future.
Yeah, thanks, David. So I would just add to that some of the follow-ups that we're going to do are with our Invest Southwest Roundtable meeting, which involves a lot of community leaders, stakeholders. It's not confirmed yet, but I think that we would like to bring this project to Plan Commission to either be, if not presented, to be voted on, to be adopted. The city's policy on that is varied in the past as to whether or not community plans like this go to Plan Commission. But we want to, I think, get this in front of as many folks in the planning community in the city as possible to show the work that's been done and to just kind of get the word out about this project. So yeah, we'll be doing that, and I believe there will be I need to get more of the details on it through our communications department, but a public comment period on the draft report. So you'll see, even to David's comment, further development of the images that you've seen in this slide deck here. So it's only going to be looking better and more developed, and we'll take the feedback that we heard here and from the other meetings as well, and hopefully it's going to be evident that it's included in the final final product, I should say. So yeah, we'll be hard at work on that, and even though this is our last public meeting, this is an ongoing effort. To Joanna's comment in the chat, what can you do to assist in making this idea a reality? I think, showing up for the meetings and, letting us know how we can make this a real community oriented project that is something that, not only North Lawndale and the West Side residents can be proud of, but something that reflects the identity and the character of the communities here and the history and the fantastic people who are residents here. So keep showing up. And
I would add, reach out to your federal legislators, because that's where the big dollars come from. So reaching out to Congressman Davis and saying, hey, this is something that we want you to earmark as it relates to this infrastructure bill. Senator Durbin, Senator Duckworth saying, hey, this is something that is going to be really transformative to a community in which I live in, something that is really needed. I think as many voices as they hear championing this with a great plan that has been through vetting of community, I think is very helpful.
Thanks, Alderman. Yeah. Also, too, another way to stay in touch with us. I can drop the link in the chat here, but if you go to the Invest Southwest page on the DPD website, there is an option to get on an email distribution list, and you can choose which communities you're interested in there. So yeah, let me drop that in the chat.
While Brian is doing that, I'd just like to say thank you to our user group. These were comprised of community members who took out of their time to meet with us after each community meeting to give counsel and summaries of what took place in those meetings. This really was a community-led effort, and I thank the team here who participated in that and who actually listened to the community. I can truly say that this was a community-led effort. Every suggestion that was made to this team, they took it back and incorporated it into the overall design. And so kudos to this team. This is the first time, and I've done development for quite some time in North Lawndale, and that was because of the leadership of the alderman, and who kind of had his foot on our necks, I will say, to make sure that the community was involved at every level of this project. So kudos to this team, and thank you to the residents who participated as well.
And Jesse, I want to thank you. I didn't do it in the beginning, but you have, from a community perspective, led this process and make sure that folks are involved in making sure that being my eyes and ears and letting me know kind of what's going on, and making sure that My desire to make sure the community was in this process from the beginning to the end, making sure that that was kind of carried through. Even with circumstances going on in your life, you still managed to step up big time for this community, and it is not overlooked. And so I want to thank you for your time and effort during this, and again, the SMO team for all that they've done. And Brian, I probably see too much of you, but I appreciate all that you do, because you work really hard for this community, and people don't see what you do behind the scenes. So I want to thank you as well for all your hard work.
Thanks so much. And I was going to say, this is our last public meeting, but everyone, most of the folks in the community know that I'm, accessible, and this won't be the last that you see my face. So you can always follow up and hold me to what we've said here. But since this has been it's been a really great process, I just want to say thank you to everyone in the community for showing up to these meetings and being productive too. We realize that not everybody is going to come in and give us a big hand and round of applause for every single time you raise the difficult issues. But that's what we're looking for, is that honest feedback, and making sure that all of these challenges and obstacles are front and center, and that we're addressing them. That's why we do these processes here, is to try to take on these difficult issues. And so I think that's a good time to just give a lot of thanks to David and Catherine and Louisa, Karen, Kyra. So I can't remember everyone's name, but all of the SOM and Leighton and SB Friedman and Hood Design members that were part of this, that are extremely talented and really busted their butts to make this happen. So we couldn't have done this without them. And we'll continue to work with them to make sure that we're delivering a real high quality product. So please do, give it up for them. And, couldn't have done this without all their hard work. Thank you very much. I'm going to wrap it up here. We got 6:55. We're pretty much at the end. Everything will be posted on, there is a project website on the Chicago DPD website. So if you go to the homepage,
we dropped the link in the chat.
Did you just? Okay. Oh yeah, that was, I think Louisa put it in above. So you can see all of the materials, and then we'll also be sending around video. This is on YouTube, so everything can be viewed, and you can go through I believe the slides and review all the materials from the previous meetings. And there's also an option to get in touch with us too, if there's anything that you missed and you want to send an email to us, and it'll probably end up in my inbox. So again, it's an ongoing process. And keep showing up and being good partners for us. So we'll be listening.
All right, thanks everybody.
Thanks everybody.
Yes, every night.
Thanks everyone. Good night.